All right, Hunter, welcome back. Another weekend slate lies ahead of us on the college basketball front. We'll have one play for today. We're going to get a little action going here, but another successful week betting on the hardwood this week. Some good games lie ahead. How are we doing? How are you feeling about this weekend?
Doing well. We've stayed hot. Just continue to rack up the wins that we're giving out, especially on Twitter. So, yeah, feeling good. Just trying to keep the hot streak going.
Indeed. And it was another week of college basketball where we didn't necessarily. There were a handful of upsets, not quite the upset of all the top teams that we saw the week before, but continues to be tough when you go on the road, not so tough when you play at home. And we saw a lot of that, especially in the power conferences, and we'll get there soon enough. But as I said, a little sneak preview off the top there. We've got some action tonight, not the strongest slate here on a Friday night, but we're trying to put out picks for every night of the week. Obviously, get over there to cbb.vincerix.com to see the best lines and the best stats, but not the strongest slate tonight. There's some Big 10 action. Indiana playing Wisconsin, UNLV and Colorado State in the Mountain West, Georgetown and Xavier in the Big East. Not one to get overly excited about, but we've got Akron, the top team this year in the MAC, heading to Kent State this evening at 7:00. What's your level of familiarity with the MAC? How many teams do you think you could list off the top of your head?
I think I know most of the MAC. I mean, I just MACtion football. You got all the directional Michigan teams. You got the Akron. You got the Kent State. Who else is in there? Is that Bowling Green in the MACtion? Yeah, you got Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, Central Michigan, Buffalo.
Yep.
That might be it for me.
Yeah, you're missing out on the the Ohio schools. You got Toledo, Ohio, and Miami of Ohio. So
that's right
going on there in the MAC. But yeah, so tonight we've got Akron traveling to Kent State. Akron right now in the VCI, the highest ranked team in the MAC at number 103. Kent State number 164. Akron's plus 1.5 tonight, traveling on the road. And I like that. You just look at the stats here. This Kent State defense is not good. 337th in the country in effective field goal defense, 321st in both 3-point and 2-point defense. And they're coming up against an Akron offense that's 42nd in the country in offensive efficiency. They move the ball around well. They like to shoot the three ball where there's Kent State's just not defending the 3-point line in any way, shape, or form. And then on the other side of the ball, kind of middling offense for Kent State. And a solid defense for Akron. You're the environments guy. I don't know if we know much about the MAC, but Akron's got off to a good start here in conference. They've taken care of business both at home and on the road. Kent State has struggled. They lost a home game to Toledo, who's not great. So I think this is our play tonight, and it's going to be Akron.
I like the Zips on the road tonight. They're the best team in the MAC. Going on the road to Kent State, like you said, Kent State already dropped a home game to Toledo. Kent State has a crazy court, so hopefully that doesn't throw off our shooters from Akron. But yeah, I like the pick.
I'm just checking to see what happened last year when Akron traveled on the road here. Overtime. Last game of the season, regular season last year, Akron against Kent State. Kent State was better last year. These tend to be a couple of the better teams in the MAC. I think come MAC conference tournament time, these will probably be top 1, 2, 3, 4 seeds there in the MAC. But yeah, one play for tonight before we get to the weekend slate. A little MACtion here on a Friday night. Akron plus 1.5. Let's get that highly efficient Akron offense going against the suspect Kent State defense, and hopefully the people of Kent, Ohio, have something better to do tonight than to pack the. It's the MAC Center there in Kent, Ohio, for tonight's game between Akron and Kent State. But let's get to the weekend slate. This is what people come for. This is a solid slate across the country in all the power conferences. The Big 12 continues to be the premier conference, but we were talking about it a little bit earlier this week. The Big 12 is without a doubt has the most depth, but I think it's getting a little bit tougher to project, who's the Final Four team out of this conference, maybe who's the national championship contender, just because they're beating up on each other so much.
The Big 12 is just so good top to bottom, hold Oklahoma State like we've talked about. But yeah, I mean, I saw something that like 10 out of the 12 hardest strength of schedules in the country all are in the Big 12 for the rest of the year. And it's just so it's so deep that every game you go on the road, it's going to be really difficult to pull off a win. And I still think the cream of the crop is Houston and Kansas. We talked about Baylor a little earlier in the year, but Baylor hasn't been defending the way that they have in years past. So I think they've taken a bit of a step back. But yeah, you look like teams like Oklahoma, Iowa State, BYU, all wagons at home. But then they go on the road and they look like different teams. And I think that just speaks to kind of like the atmospheres. I know TCU's got a home game coming up this weekend, another team that is going to be really tough to beat at home.
Yeah, and let's actually start there. And to your point, in the VCI right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams, 35th or better. And BYU is a team still 9th in the VCI. And I think BYU, they got off to a little bit of a slow start. They're losing at home to Cincinnati, but I've actually liked how they've looked recently. They lost that game to Baylor on the road. They're right in that game. And then they played nicely against Iowa State the other night. We were on that one. But the best game, according to the rankings tomorrow, in the VCI in the Big 12 is that game we just mentioned. It's Iowa State plus 4.5, TCU minus 3.5. And this TCU team, to me, has probably surprised me the most to start Big 12 play. They were good in the non-conference, but didn't play the strongest schedule. Their average win still 218th, kind of being held down by that non-conference schedule. But they opened up on the road at Kansas, lost that game by 2. Unlucky, honestly, down the stretch. They came home and beat Oklahoma. I really like this Oklahoma team. They beat Houston at home, and then they were right in that game with Cincinnati, lost down the stretch. I think that game might have gone to overtime against Cincinnati. Wow. They're minus 3.5 here against an Iowa State team that's kind of struggled away from Hilton.
Give me the Horned Frogs for sure. The minus 3.5. This Iowa State team has not been the same team away from Hilton. That Hilton magic's been real, and they've looked so good at home. But when they go on the road, they just have not looked like the same team. They didn't look like the Iowa State team that we could expect when they played at BYU. In TCU, soft strength of schedule to open the year, but they've really held their own in Big 12 play to open it up. So I love the TCU minus 3.5.
Yeah, I like it as well. And we kind of look at the numbers here. On paper, pretty evenly matched matchup, and teams that play relatively similar. Neither team really likes to shoot the 3 ball. Both teams want to go inside to the interior. The Iowa State defense is solid on the inside, but these are both teams that pride themselves on forcing turnovers and scoring in transition. We're talking about Iowa State, who's been number 1 in turnovers all season long. Now, a lot of that they've racked up against less than stellar competition, but they're first in the country in turnover percentage. TCU is 19th. Both teams solid enough, kind of middle of the road in taking care of the basketball. But I agree with you. This just isn't enough points at home. We just saw Iowa State go to BYU, I think, and that line was about 4.5, 5, and Iowa State didn't look that good on the road. And I think this TCU team, if they had beaten Cincinnati and that again lost that game down the stretch, that would have been a loss to Kansas at Kansas, home wins over Oklahoma and Houston. They've just, to me, probably been the most impressive team in the Big 12 so far this year. So yeah, minus 3.5 in a game where on paper these teams are relatively equal. I think the home court advantage here is enough, and I'll join you on the Horned Frogs at minus 3.5.
Yeah.
The rest of the Big 12 action tomorrow, highlighted by BYU's heading to Texas Tech. It's a plus 2.5 here for BYU, minus 2.5 for Texas Tech. Kind of a stay away game for me. This Texas Tech team's been a little bit volatile. And these are both teams that we've seen play well at home, not play quite as well on the road. Texas Tech was on top of the Big 12 there for going to that Houston game. They got actually curb stomped by Houston by about 23. I like this BYU team. I'm bullish on them as the season continues in the Big 12 and they start to get a feel for the physicality and the things that they didn't necessarily see in the WCC. Any sense of this one between BYU and Texas Tech?
I'm going to be hard pressed to ever take a road team in the Big 12 this year. So if I had a side, I think it'd be Texas Tech. Grant McCaslin, what he's been doing coming over from North Texas, they've looked really good. We got called out on the last pod for not mentioning Texas Tech being undefeated. So we're talking about Texas Tech. They did get curb stomped by Houston, but honestly, no shame in going and losing on the road at Houston. Texas Tech's good. Pop Isaacs is good at point guard. Warren Washington's really good down low. They're just another one of those teams that I think is going to be really tough to beat on their home floor.
Yeah, this will be a litmus test for them. I didn't realize that we've been called out, so apologies to the faithful down there of the Red Raiders. But I will say their wins so far, they were 3-0. They were atop the Big 12 there. Win at Texas, I'll give you credit for going on the road and getting a win. I don't really, as long as it's not against Oklahoma State or West Virginia, like I'm going to give you credit for that. But They then played Oklahoma State at home, which is a gimme if you want to have any respect for yourself in the Big 12. And then they beat Kansas State by 1 at home and then got smashed by Houston. So this is a litmus test. If they beat BYU at home, I'll respect that. And a great opportunity for BYU. They lost that opener to Cincinnati that I didn't see that game. I don't know how they lost it, but battled Baylor tough for the most part on the road. Then they beat UCF, who's seemingly solid. I mean, Kansas went down there and lost. That's a good win. And then to come home and kind of really take care of business against Iowa State. This is an interesting one to watch. And to your point, not one where we really have a side on it, but a litmus test for both of these teams who are, for me, probably just a step below Kansas and Houston, but they're in that TCU, they're in that bucket where any of these teams really, Oklahoma could be, the 3-4 seeds come Big 12 tournament time.
I think it'll be interesting to see if Texas Tech in the long run can hang in that second tier. I think they might be a tier below those teams that are a tier below. Like, I don't know if I put Texas Tech in that tier 2 with the Baylor, with the BYU, but we'll have to see. They're going to have the opportunities, of course, but their wins haven't been great. Like, Texas isn't a tournament team, so that win doesn't look as good. They did get curb stomped by Houston, so we'll see. Opportunity against BYU this weekend.
The positive for Texas Tech is I believe there were some off the court issues stemming from some incidents in the Bahamas that those players have been separated now. So at least they can focus forward now on the rest of the season there for the Red Raiders. But the couple other games in the Big 12, Oklahoma's playing Cincinnati. This is in the exact same tier as the BYU Texas Tech game, where Oklahoma's 20 in the VCI, Cincinnati's 35, Oklahoma's +3 on the road, Cincinnati's -2.5. I think Oklahoma's the better team. I really like this Oklahoma team and how I always struggle with Porter Moser, how he has them playing, but the Cincinnati team's I'm staying away from games involving Cincinnati effectively is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I don't have a feel on Cincinnati, but I really do like this Oklahoma team. Porter Moser talked to the media about needing to get more athletic. He said that they were the least athletic team in the Big 12 last year, and they went out, they hit the portal, and they did that, and they're super athletic this year, and they play hard. They play great defense. Should be an interesting matchup. In Cincinnati holding their own to start Big 12 play. I think a lot of people had them pretty low on the list, but holding their own to start Big 12 play, a great opportunity to knock off the Sooners.
Yeah, they've kind of shown up. They beat BYU. They lost at home to Texas. You probably want to win that one. They lost on the road at Baylor, but beating TCU is a solid win at home. Tough battle down the stretch there. And then this Oklahoma team, they so far have been a little Jekyll and Hyde, home and away. They beat Iowa State at home, but then they've gone on the road and lost to TCU, and Kansas came back and took care of business against a West Virginia team that is definitely near the bottom of the conference. So I think these teams are pretty equal. I think the Oklahoma team has more upside come later in the season, come March. They're a team that I actually am really excited to kind of see where they fall in the bracket, just because the level of intensity they bring on both the offensive and defensive side of the floor. But same level of the BYU game, where this is in the 2.5-3 range on the road, and it's going to come down to the wire and could go either way. And then Baylor, they're traveling to Texas. I was leaning towards the Texas -1 here, just as like it doesn't really make sense. Baylor's the better team here, but Baylor, when you look at the stats of this game, where Texas is actually good is on the defensive end. They've been solid enough defensively. It's their offense that just hasn't been clicking this year, but they're really good at 2-point scoring. And we know that Baylor's been struggling to defend the lane, and Baylor's also hasn't been too strong on the road. So I'm not going to make an official selection here, but I think this is a tough spot for this Baylor team, even though on paper it's number 15 versus number 49.
That's where Baylor's susceptible. They really struggled to keep teams out of the lane. They got exposed when they played at MSG and they played Duke, and Duke just got anything they wanted, getting 2 feet in the paint on nearly every possession. So the blueprint's out on how to beat Baylor. And like we've talked about it, Baylor's not the Baylor of years past with their defense. Their offense is still great. So I think I've said it before, but they're really like good Iowa. Like they can score a lot, but they're going to give up a lot. Yeah, an interesting line, Texas -1. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I've bet Texas once this year. I was at Cincinnati earlier at the beginning of the Big 12 play, and that hit. And now Texas is awful, and I think I'm walking away with one victory on Texas this year on one bet, and will not be returning to the Longhorns, who are too busy arguing with opposing teams over horns down after losing that. And it reminds me of when the Huskies beat them, it's the horns down. Oh, where are we? The horns down into the dubs up is the move. So it's the horns down into the dubs up there when the Huskies beat them in the Sugar Bowl. So no offense to the Texas fans. My girlfriend went to Texas. All love, but you guys need to chill a little bit on the horns down. Getting out of the Big 12 to, again, boots on the ground here. There's actually a game tomorrow that I didn't even realize was happening. I'm considering getting some boots on the ground. Big East play. The game of the day in the Big East. Number 5, UConn. Number 1 in the country. Number 5 in the VCI. Heading to Villanova to play number 28 Villanova at the Wells Fargo Center, not on campus here. And it opens as UConn -1.5, Villanova +2, over under in the 136.5 range. UConn, they are taking care of business. They got off to that slow start against Seton Hall. Klingon got hurt that game, kind of just threw him off. And obviously Seton Hall's a lot better than I think we thought they were at that point of the season. But since then, home win over St. John's, hammered DePaul, road win at Butler, road win at Xavier, home win against Georgetown, and then really took care of Creighton the other night. And then this Villanova team continues to be not great. If we're being honest about it, they got smacked at Marquette. They, of course, lost their last meaningful home game to St. John's. I like Connecticut here. We talk about not betting the Big East road teams or the Big 12 road teams. UConn's one of the teams that I trust right now on the road.
UConn's been a wagon. Donovan Klingon, what he might be the most valuable player in the country because what UConn is able to do when he's on the floor. I saw an interesting thing that Cam Spencer is the fifth best player on any team in the country, and that just so encapsulates what makes UConn so good. It's like there's a lot of nights where it seems like Cam Spencer is the one beating you, but Tristan Newton's playing like an All-American. Alex Caravan's an NBA guy. Solo Ball off the bench is really good. Diarra off the bench is really good. UConn's built for it. They're built to beat anyone in the country. They can go big, they can go small, they can beat you however.
Yeah, and then Stefan Castle, number 5. I like that guy too, the freshman for them. Just the job by Danny Hurley to take a team, obviously, that won the national championship last year. Only a couple of those pieces come back, and he's just plugged in the right solutions to all the questions that popped up as players, move on and go to the NBA. But this UConn team, once again, looks special. They're -1.5 here. I'm going to take that against this Villanova team. When you look at the stats, also, is beyond just the fact that I think UConn's clearly the better team here. Villanova doesn't defend the three-point line at all. We've talked about this all year. We know UConn wants to let the three fly. They're shooting it better and better. Every time a UConn game pops up and I look at the stats, that three-point number just keeps getting better and better. It was a red number for us a while ago, and now it's green. And they moved the ball. They're 18th in assists. Villanova surrendering 277th most assists per field goal. So I think UConn's just going to get whatever they want on the offensive end. And then we know what Villanova wants to do. They want to just toss up threes and hope they fall. UConn's going to run them off the three-point line. That's what the UConn defense does. And then they're still top 10 on the interior. All signs point to UConn here for me.
UConn -1.5. Lock it up.
Indeed. And UConn did cash us a road victory against the spread against Xavier a few weeks ago. So we'll take the risk here. Of course, we have to preface all road bets in college basketball with they're not for the faint of heart. When you if you are looking for something safer, you might want to take one of these other bets. Not that any of them are safe, but the road action in either the Big 12 or the Big East is not ideal. And maybe even the Big 10. I think the ACC, I don't really worry too much about the road action right now. There's a couple of clear teams in the ACC. But yeah, Big 12, Big East, you got to watch out there. And the game I was talking about, the potential boots on the ground game, Marquette, St. John's, Madison Square Garden tomorrow at noon. Marquette -1, St. John's +1.5. We got burned when Pitino was not on the floor for the Johnnies as they got absolutely crushed by Seton Hall. Marquette bounces back with a home win over Villanova, but this is another team, Marquette, who only plays good at the Fiserv Center, and this game is at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, Marquette's been really good at Fiserv Forum, and away from home, they've been a different team. I think it's safe to say that we are lower on Marquette than we were coming out of Maui. I think Marquette lacks size. Like, they have Oso Ighodaro, and he's really good down low. But after him, Joplin, their power forward's not really a super athletic big. Ben Gold off the bench likes to step outside and shoot threes. So they're just – I feel like the staple of a Shaka Smart team is being really tough and physical. And, like, Tyler Kolek isn't a physical guard. I like St. John's. Like, I like the Johnnies.
Yeah, I was just looking at the home and away numbers here. St. John's in conference has yet to lose a home game. here, and Marquette has yet to win a road game in conference. They won at Illinois earlier in the season, but that was right at the beginning of the year. And I agree with you. This Marquette team, also Sean Jones getting injured for them. Unfortunate. He was a nice little piece off the bench with his speed. They just haven't been the team we thought they were going to be. St. John's has been better than I think we thought they were going to be. They did not play well in that Seton Hall game, but they're also without Patino. So assuming Patino's back here, I like the Johnnies as well. I don't think I'm going to take a stance as of this moment, just because, again, if Patino's not there, I think it could be a different story. I assume he's probably back from COVID at this point. But yeah, again, I'd expect St. John's to win. And just looking at the stats or the rankings in the Big East right now, UConn number 5 in the VCI, and then Creighton is 16, Marquette 18, Villanova 28, St. John's 31, and Xavier 32. We thought this was going to be a few teams in the top tier. I think we're looking at a Big East where it's UConn and then kind of everybody else, and you can at home or away the rest of these teams. It really could go either way.
Yeah, UConn's in a class of their own, and the teams that we thought were in that second tier, that tier is expanded. Like, there's a lot of teams that at home are going to be difficult for anyone but UConn to beat in Big East play.
Agreed with that. And Seton Hall, a shout out to Seton Hall. We talked about this the other day, not on the pod, but I've been doubting Seton Hall all year. I think the team I've lost the most bets against is Seton Hall. Shaheen Holloway has the boys playing good basketball. It doesn't look pretty. They aren't an all-airport team. If you saw them walking through the lobby, you would think this team has no chance in the Big East. But Shaheen Holloway has done a hell of a job with the Seton Hall team, and he's got them, honestly, in the tournament conversation, I would think. Yeah,
that's a team that plays really tough. They do play a bit of booty ball. Like, they really like to back you down, get in the paint. Seton Hall's been tough, especially at the Prudential Center. They've got who do they have tomorrow? They have
Creighton. I was just about to say, yeah, they've got Creighton. It's +2. Seton Hall, Creighton -1.5 at the Prudential Center tomorrow.
I think that's a really tough matchup for Creighton. Like, we've seen Creighton struggle with physicality and athleticism, especially against UConn. Like, UConn just had a different level of athlete out on the floor than Creighton did. So I'm really surprised by that line. I really like the Seton Hall +2 tomorrow at home.
Yeah. Again, I've retired from being involved in Seton Hall basketball this year. But to your point, Seton Hall plays a very slow pace. They're 289th in the country in pace. They're going to want to slow down. They're going to play physical. That's where Creighton struggled. That's where Creighton struggled against UConn, only scoring 48 points. I think the line probably has to do with just the stats. Like, we have 6 red siren emojis in favor of the Creighton defense here against the Seton Hall offense. But based on results, there's no evidence that this Creighton team should be favored against pretty much any of the middle to top tier Big East teams. I think that a lot of their stats, especially the computer rankings, are carrying over from what we thought this Creighton team would be and more than what they actually are.
The thing about this Creighton team is when they're getting out in the open floor, Shireman and Ashworth, they're really good from deep. But when they get in the half court, they can't beat guys off the dribble. And Kalkbrenner's really not a guy that you can throw it into the post. Trey Alexander's their guy to beat you off the dribble, but he ends up taking like really tough fadeaways off 1 foot all the time. And they just got exposed by UConn. Like, when they got athletes on them, I mean, they didn't get any good looks that weren't casting from like 35 feet. So yeah, I
saw
really
somebody on Twitter, I don't know who it was, made a good point, and like, it's kind of just true. A lot of these Creighton players are mid-major level players. I mean, Baylor Shireman comes from South Dakota State. You get Stephen Ashworth from Utah State. They're just not handling the physicality of the conference. And the Seton Hall team is definitely one of the most physical teams in the conference. So I agree with you. I like Seton Hall here in this one. I'm not going to bet it because, like I said, I'm retired from Seton Hall basketball, but I like the Pirates, and they've definitely outperformed at least my expectations in the Big East. So yeah, that's the other big East game tomorrow, is Creighton at Seton Hall at noon over there in Newark. Moving to the SEC, this is the game of the day in college basketball. It's number 8 in the VCI, this Alabama team who continues to be loved by the computers. And they're starting to earn that respect a little bit more. We know that they struggled against some top teams in the non-conference, but they've taken care of business to start SEC play now. To be fair, they played Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Missouri. So
Cakewalk City.
Yeah, not the best teams in the SEC. And then you've got this Tennessee team who's number 6 in the VCI, who played one of the toughest schedules in the country in the non-conference. They've looked good come conference play. They did lose at Mississippi State last week, but they just took care of business against Florida at home. This is Rocky Top. This is I know you're feeling about the atmosphere there in Knoxville. The line Tennessee -5.5, Alabama +5.5.
Saturdays in Rocky Top. I'm always riding with the Vols. Saturdays in Rocky Top. Like they are always ready to go. That is one of the toughest, if not the toughest, environments in the SEC.
Yep, Dalton Connect's been fantastic. How many? He's on some sort of SEC or Tennessee scoring record run. He's been absolutely lighting it up.
The commentator last game gave him a Kevin Durant comp, which I think is a little much for Dalton Connect. But yeah, he got a Kevin Durant comp. So
yeah, let's just give 1 second here for Dalton Connect, who comes over from Northern Colorado, and yeah, 39 against Florida, unbelievable. 36 against Georgia, 28 in the loss to Mississippi State. I think he was still nursing a little bit of that ankle injury for a while there that he suffered against North Carolina, I think. And then you even look at his minutes and his stats, but like the last 3 games, he's clearly firing on all cylinders.
He's at the Tennessee record for points in a 3-game stretch. Really impressive.
Yeah, he can. That's the piece that this Tennessee team hasn't had in the last, half dozen years, where they've been great defensively. And then you had a guy like Dalton Connect who's scoring the basketball. The stats here, every time you look at the Alabama stats on offense, they're always just amazing. The computers love the efficiency of the Alabama offense. One thing to watch out for here for Tennessee is that they don't do a great job defending the 3-point line, or they do a good job percentage-wise. They're 49th in the country in 3-point defense, but they surrender the 207th most attempts. And we know Alabama's just going to be Alabama probably shoot 45 threes if you're going to let them. And then on the other side of the ball, Alabama does a good job taking away the pass, and then Tennessee's been scoring on the pass, but I don't know who on Alabama is going to stop Connect, or has Alabama's I don't think of them as a team that has, one guy who you just locks down. They kind of play let you drive to the rim and try to block your shot defense.
Yeah, it's going to be another Alabama game where it comes down to just how many of those threes that they're hitting, because Tennessee, one of the reasons Tennessee gives up so many threes is because they're so good and physical on the interior that it's really tough to score in there, so you have to end up casting from deep. The computers love Alabama, but I don't think those shots are going to fall at Rocky Top.
Yeah, I know how much you love Rocky Top, and I'm going to join you. I'm going to take the Tennessee -5.5 here as well, and that's just because at home, to your the stats back up your love of Rocky Top. They just beat Florida by 19 at home. They beat Mississippi by 26 at home. They beat Illinois by 7 at home, a game that they were up for pretty much the whole time. No one has touched Tennessee at home so far this year. This Alabama team still doesn't have a marquee victory. Their best result was that Mississippi State game. Now, to be fair, Tennessee did lose that game to Mississippi State, but Rocky Top, Rick Barnes, Dalton Connect, 40 points. We just need Alabama to shoot 36% from 3 instead of 45% from 3, and it should be enough for us. A game where there's also going to be lots of points and lots of free throws. Both of these teams foul a ton. The whistle here will be important, and again, that's another plus for being at home for Tennessee.
Yeah, Alabama just rotates through those 2 bigs that just pick up 5 fouls every game.
Indeed. So yeah, Tennessee -5.5 there. So for an update on where things stand, Akron +1.5, UConn -1.5, TCU -3.5, and Tennessee -5.5 here. The rest of the SEC action tomorrow, nothing really of note. Ole Miss is going to Auburn. Auburn has been absolutely steamrolling every team they played. Auburn's so good that they're getting double-digit favoritism home and away against pretty much every team that they play in the SEC. Now they have been playing some of the lower teams. Kentucky hosts Georgia, but not a lot else going on in the SEC tomorrow. But yeah, 2:00, Alabama, Tennessee. I hope this is a CBS game as well. Let's see. ESPN 2. Too bad. I love some SEC Rocky Top on CBS. But that takes us to the Big Ten. The Big Ten games tomorrow. Purdue going to Iowa. Iowa's not good this year. Purdue should take care of business there. It's a 7 spread, though, and to be honest, you cannot trust Purdue right now on the road in these games where the spread's 7. They could easily lose this game. The game I wanted to talk about here that I really like a bet on is the Cornhuskers, Nebraska. They are -4 You can get plus 4.5 on Northwestern. They're hosting Northwestern there in Lincoln at 2:15 tomorrow. Northwestern number 62 in the VCI, Nebraska number 52. Fred Hoiberg has Nebraska playing some great basketball this year. They are another Jekyll and Hyde home and away team, and that's the exact same story with Northwestern. This Nebraska team offensively solid enough. The Northwestern defense has a lot of red flags here. You just pull up cbb.vinceerics.com and get a look at all the red flashing on this Northwestern team. Nebraska moves the ball nicely. They shoot a lot of threes. Northwestern does very little to take away those aspects of the game. I love the Cornhuskers here. I'll get to the home and away stats here in a second, but you went out of your way to learn a key name for the Nebraska team. So I'll let you have a moment here to talk Nebraska basketball.
Keisei Tominaga. He is an electric factory from deep. He can absolutely shoot the ball, especially at home. He drains his threes. And yeah, Hoiberg's got Nebraska playing good basketball. It's been a long, long time since you could say Nebraska's been playing good basketball, but he's got a good thing going. And I really like them at home.
Yeah, at home, they have a win over Purdue and Indiana so far this calendar year versus Northwestern, who has only road win of the 2 road wins of the season. They beat DePaul, which doesn't count, and they beat Penn State, which doesn't count. So I think this Northwestern team's better at home. I think this Big 10 tier of mid-level teams, the teams that are ranking like in the 40 to 60 range in the VCI. I like the home teams given no information. And then you give me the offensive numbers here for Nebraska, who shoots a lot of threes. They move the ball, some of the best ball movement in the country against a Northwestern defense that's not really designed to stop that. And then on the other side of the floor, Northwestern 210th in 3-point attempts. So they want to go inside of the interior. And that's where Nebraska's defense is the best, ranking number 33 in the country in 2-point defense. So first bet of the year for me on the Cornhuskers here, -4.
I like it. Lincoln.
That's not much else to write home about in the Big Ten. The Big Ten, we know what it is right now. It's Purdue and then Wisconsin and Illinois, kind of a step below. Looking forward to the games you look forward to in the Big Ten are when those 3 teams are going to play each other. I don't have much else to say about the Big Ten at the moment. And then the ACC, not a lot going on tomorrow in the Atlantic Coast Conference. I'm midway down the page before we see the rankings giving us ACC matchups. Pitt's playing Duke. North Carolina's playing Boston College. The ACC is North Carolina and Duke, and we'll wait until those teams play each other to get too excited.
The ACC is, I don't want to call it top heavy. I want to call it bottom heavy because there are a lot of teams. There are a lot of teams that stink in the ACC. This is not good basketball. That said, North Carolina and Duke have looked very good. So North Carolina was on a crazy cover streak. They had covered every game since I think the Kentucky game. Louisville ends up covering the spread against them at home. But yeah, I really like North Carolina and Duke against the spread when they're laying quite a few points against these bad teams because they are absolutely handling them.
Yeah, North Carolina's 7 in the VCI, Duke's 11. The potential tournament teams, probably Clemson and Wake Forest, who are 36 and 41, but not a lot of bids likely in the ACC. And then just quickly touch on a few games outside of the power conferences. As we are now the voice of the Mountain West Conference, we are here to always talk highly about the Mountain West. Now, I will say I'm a little worried about the Mountain West in that I don't know who the tournament team is here, like who's the deep run in the tournament. They're all kind of beating up on each other. It's fun to watch, though, in the regular season, but I don't know if I'm going to hang my hat on any of them come tournament time. But the game of the day in the Mountain West is number 23, San Diego State, traveling to number 50, Boise State. It's a pick'em right now. You can get plus 1.5 on Boise State. Who is your top team in the Mountain West right now where you would be willing to take them on the road against somebody?
My top team is home New Mexico.
New Mexico.
My best team on a neutral floor is San Diego State.
Yeah, I like San Diego State in this game. I think this Boise State team is a step below both New Mexico and San Diego State. So I expect San Diego State to take care of business here, but we don't mess around on the road in the Mountain West either. That's another conference where we tend to stay at home. And then I wanted to mention potentially a couple of the 3 teams who are challenging atop the West Coast Conference, St. Mary's and San Francisco. Number 26, St. Mary's. Number 54, San Francisco. Gonzaga took care of business for us last night against Pepperdine. But the top of the WCC now, it's kind of anybody's game between St. Mary's, San Francisco, and Gonzaga. And this St. Mary's team that got off to a shaky start, they beat New Mexico, but then they kind of struggled. Both of these teams have showed up in conference and have not let anybody really challenge them. Both teams absolutely clobbering most of their opponents so far in WCC play. This could be a battle to win the conference between St. Mary's and San Francisco.
Yeah, St. Mary's, I'm unfortunately on record saying this was Randy Bennett's best team in Moraga. That non-con was tough, but I still think they're right there when it comes to WCC play with Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga has holes that St. Mary's can take advantage of. And then you mentioned San Francisco. They continue to be a good team that's knocking on the door of the NCAA tournament. They lost their coach, Todd Golden, to Florida. Didn't have as good of a year last year. But, yeah, San Francisco plays a really fun brand of basketball, a really fun team in the WCC. They have that great home environment. It's a tiny peanut box gym, but it gets rocking in there.
Yeah, War Memorial at the Sobrato Center is the stadium that you referred to there for San Francisco. It's a night game tomorrow. And the San Francisco offense, actually both sides of the ball, this San Francisco team's just efficient. They were under Todd Golden as well. It's a good program. They're 14th in offensive efficiency and 6th in defensive efficiency. The St. Mary's defense is really good. They're 5th in the country in defensive efficiency. But I'm actually, the closer I look at this, I really like the San Francisco team in this game. San Francisco -1.5 here. I'm going to take that. And unfortunately, that means that I have an even number of selections, which we try to avoid. But that's fine. We'll just have to go 4-2 to not have the annoying 3-3 result. But San Francisco's defense here in this matchup, 50th in the country in effective field goal percentage. St. Mary's outside the top 200. Now, on the defensive end, there's the fire emojis all over the place here. The San Francisco offense is efficient against a strong St. Mary's defense. But I think San Francisco is the better team here on both sides of the ball and holistically. And then you get them at home in a tough environment in a game where this is a battle for the top of the WCC. Give me the Dons here, -1.5.
I love the Dons.
That'll do it for the matchups for tomorrow. There's a few games on Sunday that maybe we'll put something out on Twitter for those games. But to give the summary, we've got the Zips coming up here tonight. If you're watching, get that Zips bet in if you so choose. I think that game tips off at 7 tonight. They're +1.5. And then UConn -1.5, Nebraska -4, TCU -3.5, Tennessee -5.5. And San Francisco -1.5. So not by choice, but a lot of favorites for us tomorrow. Hunter, a good day of basketball ahead. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. 2 good games up here. We got the Seton Hall game at home and the St. John's game at home. So New York City will be basketball.
Yeah, New York City with the snow still sprinkling down here. Finally, a little bit of winter. It's not sticking, but nice to get the winter vibes here in New York. But yeah, for the summary again, Akron +1.5, UConn -1.5, Nebraska -4, TCU -3.5, Tennessee -5.5, and a nightcapper, San Francisco, the Dons, -1.5. Hunter, appreciate you hopping on and appreciate people listening to this, and good luck this weekend on your wagers.